Empire. The personal trainer is about to be supercharged.
We really built it from the ground up, focused around the coaching or the training experience and the tool sets that help enable that to, again, correct form on the fly.
That's Masa Kabayama, CEO of Uplift Labs, where AI is taking personal training to a new level. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The idea started long before a pandemic, finding a way to get proper feedback in form and execution when working out. Those who can afford the personal trainer get that, but who has a personal trainer every time they're in the gym anyway? These days, going, or more importantly, returning to the gym are interesting subplots. And that's where Masa and his team at Uplift are looking for solutions. Our guest this week is the founder and CEO of Uplift Labs, Masa Kabayama. It is a group that is taking advantage of sophisticated athletic biomechanics and extending it to the masses. Hey, Masa, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Uplift Labs. What is your goal and mission?
Absolutely. So we founded Uplift Labs with my co-founders, Jonathan and Rahul, a little over 3 years ago with a vision of what we call improving human movement performance across all parts of our lives.
And take me through the idea of, because we've talked to a lot of founders who work with high-level athletes, Olympians, professional athletes, as you try to shift this to the weekend warriors, the everyday athlete. Take me through that mission and how you sought to reach out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really came about, the origin story was back in the day, I used to do CrossFit quite a bit. And unfortunately, I used to injure myself doing CrossFit. And so I kept thinking, is it something about my form or my technique? And I figured if I'm having this problem, as a weekend warrior type, countless millions from the professionals to, amateur athletes like myself must be having the same issue. So that was sort of our aha moment, if you will. We looked at technologies out there that help try to understand form. But really, we found nothing is really out there from, wearable marker solutions that really get your full form. They're cumbersome to wear. There are a lot of video solutions out there, but you don't have that kind of instant feedback. So we started to, we developed a product, which we call Uplift Capture, which uses 2 iPhones only, no wearables again. And with that, you can get lab-grade 3D biomechanical data analysis on your movement patterns. So with this product, we are working with the world's largest golf instruction company, a lot of MLB teams, starting our first foray into MLS, into soccer, and then now slowly bringing that down into amateur kind of academy athletics as well.
So you collect all this data and then it is translated for the high-level athletes, obviously, and this is their profession and this is what they're doing. As you kind of think through how a regular average person like myself would take data about my workouts, how do you think through translating that for them so that they can put it in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So the Uplift Capture product that we developed is really sort of an enterprise level professional sports product, sports teams. And as you pointed out, very much you kind of need a sports scientist or analyst, to infer the data on how to improve. We've taken that basis and the credibility, the validation that we got from the professional teams and really launched late last year what we call, just Uplift, which is our remote, in-person and remote training platform. And on this one, whether you're working together, side by side with your coach or your trainer, or you're, working out remotely like many of us have been doing during this pandemic and are still doing, and we believe it's something that will continue in the future. We have AI technologies that, we developed from Uplift Capture that we're now transitioned into the Uplift product. So you can get data overlays, right, on your form. Let's say you're doing a squat and making sure that your knees are going beyond your toes. The coach, even though they're miles away, they can see the data on which, you might have a poor form, so you can correct on the fly, which is an example where, taking that learnings from working with professional teams and, making it very accessible for anybody at all skill levels.
So is someone on your end, a fitness trainer, translating the data and then communicating it back to the regular average user, or is the app itself kind of explaining to the user how to alter their form to get better production out of their workouts?
The way we kind of situate ourselves is that we love to help those who help other people for a living. Whether they are, coaches or trainers or physical therapists, and they use our tools to be able to do that. So we certainly today, we don't have like an AI coach in your pocket or an AI, physical therapist. We're developing these platforms and providing it to these professionals, who then work with, athletes or, people who want to work out or trying to improve their movements.
It feels like an incubator for fitness trainers 2.0. Is that kind of a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, yeah, we like maybe if we just go to, to a high altitude and we see what's been going on during this year of the pandemic where people are still trying to stay in shape and still trying to be game ready. A lot of them are resorting to like using Zoom and FaceTime. And, these are great kind of communication general tools or like business tools, but they weren't built for skill or technique specific training. And that's where, really our technology is way different where, we really built it from the ground up, focused around the coaching or the training experience and the tool sets that help enable that to, again, correct form on the fly.
Let me go back to one thing that you mentioned, which was the pandemic has obviously altered everybody's behaviors, for good reason over the last year. And I feel like there's, as we're speaking here, before we started taping, I'm talking about cherry blossoms blooming in Washington, and you're talking about life going back to normal in California. And so I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. But as you kind of survey the marketplace of how people are going to work out post-pandemic, what do you see in the future of workouts? Does it remain remote? Do you think people go back to gyms? How do you kind of view what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of habit has definitely been altered during this 1 year. Just kind of like a lot of conversations about the workplace. There are a lot of conversations about a hybrid approach where some days you're in the office, some days you're working from home. I think it's very much similar to both the sports and the fitness training world, and even things like physical therapy, where there's definitely added benefit where you're working in person with a coach or a trainer, but at the same time, and you get the convenience of being able to work out from home. And we want to ensure that experience, whether you're in person with your coach or trainer or working with them from home, is equal footing, right? And that's where the technology comes in that really enables that equal level playing field. So we're really long and big believers in a hybrid world post pandemic.
Support for this podcast comes from Goldman Sachs. What do Goldman Sachs experts and leading thinkers have to say about trends shaping markets, industries, and the global economy? Stay informed with the latest insights from Goldman Sachs on the economic and market implications of COVID-19. Available on our podcasts at gs.com/COVID-19 or any of your favorite podcast platforms.
A lot of people who can afford it have the type of new technologies that Peloton provides, or the Mirror, which has become very popular, or Fight Club with boxing, and all sorts of different, home gym options. Are you all looking at working with them to help enhance their data, or do you see them as competitors? How do you kind of view that marketplace?
Yeah, I think right now we're maybe in the general space, but I think a different approach. It's not to say that we might not be able to work together in the future, but we're really flipping the script. I think for a lot of the services, some of those that you mentioned, is really either on very highly produced content of a trainer that you're downloading on demand to work out at your own leisure, or like the Peloton example you gave, even though they're live classes. It's one instructor beaming out to thousands, if not maybe millions of folks. So they're not really concentrating on your form or giving personalized feedback. And what I mean by still flip the script is that a lot of our coaches and trainers are spending the bulk of their time looking at an athlete or looking at, their clients, whether it's a one-to-one personal training session or maybe a small group class up to 12. And that's a key differentiator. And I think that's been missing in the market where, a professional trainer will really be spending time to help you correct your form or help improve your game, whether it's a swing or a pitch or a throw, just like someone like me that was actually going through physical therapy a little bit earlier this year and working with, a practitioner to help improve my, get my range of motion back.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways we've talked to, some groups that are working with, literal brick and mortar gymnasiums, and they say that they believe that community will still matter, that social interaction will still matter, and there will be a subset of people that once the pandemic's over will go back to gyms, and that's what they're hoping. It sounds like what you are also saying is personalization really matters here, and that's what's lost in all of the not being able to be in person with the trainer. Is that kind of a fair way to discuss your viewpoint of the marketplace?
Yeah, at least that's where the stake that we put in our ground. We really believe in the personalization, but that's not just to your point. I mean, the community development, we have some things to, for gamification to keep it very engaging, more for the youth athletes as well. But really, I guess I keep repeating this a little bit, but really the form and the technique is so vital that, how do you know a 14-year-old is pitching correctly, right? Just using like Zoom, for example. It's really hard. There's a lot to be dependent upon that coach's ability to really look, right? Versus like being able to then being armed with data to see how your elbow, your throw, or even be able to we have something called live replay, where we capture just what happened, but we can play it instantly at 120 frames per second, so the coach can control the actual athlete's, iPhone camera or Android camera to slow motion play back instantly, so they can see exactly how they threw the ball, as an example.
You had mentioned you were in physical therapy. I guess you see applications for all of this in that realm, rehab, healthcare, all of that as well?
Absolutely. So at the moment, we're working very closely with in the area of sports and a little bit in fitness, mostly one-to-one personal training. But yeah, we definitely see already huge applications in the healthcare space. And again, for rehabilitation, physical therapy in these areas.
I want to ask you about your background, because this is so interesting that you're in this. When people hear what you've done before this, it's a far cry from the sectors you were working in, like Tesla and Apple and Lego and places like that. I want to start just in general. How did you end up in the fitness realm with that background in business?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of twofold. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I've been very, fortunate to have been associated and being part of, these great consumer brand companies. But really, when I looked at my role, it was very much introducing some form of new technology to an existing, market. Whether at Lego, it's introducing robotics educational sets for schools for hands-on learning, or at Apple, was very fortunate to be part of the team to lead the educational efforts in Japan when introducing the iPad and how do you bring about a digital learning environment. And then finally, of course, at Tesla, when as president, again in Japan, launching the Model S. So a brand new concept of an electric vehicle, or I used to say iPhones on wheels, to the Japanese marketplace, which was very nascent, with EV technology. So that's kind of the cloth that I'm cut from. And then, so to answer your question on the fitness side, I mean, that fitness has always been something that has been a lifelong, as a practitioner, again, not at the elite level, but just, someone who's very into wellness. And I always felt there was something missing, right? Like, why isn't there a smarter way on understanding how you're moving? And then thus, the injuries sparked from my CrossFit days kind of put, the two things that were disparate together.
So it sounds like what you look for are gaps in education from providers to a public. And when you see that, that's attractive to you. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. I mean, with 12 years of ed tech experience, and maybe you can even say the Tesla years, was in a way very much educational, right? Like to the customer on how they think of building a more sustainable, environment through their choice of the vehicle they drive. I think that is definitely a lifelong theme of mine, and where I'm very passionate.
I'll let you go in a moment, but you did mention something that, and I know it's really kind of off track, but mentioning that Japan was maybe behind in the EV market sounds almost counterintuitive to what the belief is and how forward-thinking that automobile market has been there. Why was that the case?
I would say, well, as everyone knows, hybrid, like with the Prius, for example, they were very, very quick to go hybrid, but to go kind of the extra mile, right, the full, the full 9 yards, so to speak, where it's completely going electric. I think in that sense, and even today a little bit. Even though Nissan is a Japanese company and they had the Leaf as well, you just didn't kind of see the momentum that I think you're seeing, especially out here in California. And so, it surprises a lot of people. But in terms of the electrification movement was, I think, not as gung-ho as what you see here out in California, and maybe other parts of the U.S. and other countries as well.
Masa Kabayama is the co-founder and the CEO of Uplift Labs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This episode is brought to you by Hotels.com. Hotels.com takes the drama out of booking a trip. With free cancellation on most hotels, the only booking drama is friend drama. Like booking something that makes everyone on your trip happy. Just remember, Jared is pro-beach. Bailey will combust if water so much as touches her. Meredith has to be on the top floor. And Andrew has to be in the basement for some reason you will never ask about. Ever. Thankfully, there's an accommodation for everyone on Hotels.com. Booking a trip can feel dramatic, but with free cancellation, you can't go wrong with Hotels.com. Terms apply. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Samsung. Moms help everyone be their most epic selves. So for Mother's Day, help mom be her most epic with Samsung Galaxy gifts. Like their most advanced smartphone camera, so mom can take photos like a pro. A smartwatch with next-level fitness tracking. Samsung's best earbuds yet to help mom block out and turn up. Or the statement-making Galaxy Z Flip 5G that lets mom flex her style. This year, celebrate what makes mom epic with Samsung Galaxy.
On the next Future Sport podcast, betting the Derby and horse racing in general is advancing through tech.
And we see it in our customer base. Anyone that gets past 3 months as a customer generally stays with us, right, forever. Because I think that's the path of proficiency, if you like, or the barrier of entry is once you've learned how to handicap.
That's Paul Williams, CEO at First Technology. As the oldest form of American legalized sports wagering, is modernizing with the times. That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3 Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3 Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.